Hi, I'm Connie Whitman, your host, and you're listening to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.net. As always, you know I am honored that you've joined us this week. So my motivational quote today is actually by Albert Einstein, the amazing Albert Einstein, and he says, "Creativity is contagious. Pass it on." Now, as a kid, do you remember when your mom went out and bought you that really big box of the Crayola crayons? Remember how it smelt when you opened the lid and how perfect each point of the crayon looked at you and stood at attention, saying, "Choose me, choose me." And remember, as you started to visualize the picture you were going to create, your next masterpiece. Or I was a coloring book gal, so maybe you were looking through your coloring book, trying to choose that perfect picture. Now, at that moment, when you placed that crayon to the paper, there were no thoughts of judgment or fear that your creation would be anything but perfect. The only thing that mattered was you and, of course, the creation. So what happened? Why did we stop coloring, drawing, and creating these masterpieces that brought us such joy and bliss? Does aging mean we have to lose that feeling of creativity and that blissful engagement? And you know what? I certainly hope not. So, of course, you know my guest today, we're going to talk about this. And her name is Joanne Nocera, and she's actually a good friend of mine. And she believes that creativity and joy can be rediscovered. Now, Joanne is an educator, school administrator, mom, and artist. She's seen a shift where creativity and inspiration is coming from places like Pinterest and Google. Now, she says we're moving closer to perfection, but further from joy. So Joanne opted to create change in her community by infusing arts into learning and is encouraging parents by showing them how to bring arts back into the home as well. Now, through decades of her own experience, although she looks remarkably good for her age, extensive research, and her own personal story, Joanne's new book, which I'm so excited is coming out, "Give Me Back My Crayons," awesome title, illustrates the value of trusting ourselves and reaching deep into ourselves to find that creative genius living inside, while modeling for our kids how to do the same. So please help me welcome my wonderful, dear friend Joanne to the show. So Jo, thanks for being on.
Thanks, Connie.
So I know I was part of this journey for you, right?
Yes.
We were at my nephew's graduation, his PhD, about a
Yep.
year. It's about just shy of a year ago, right, Joe?
Over a year. Hmm.
And started talking, and Joanne, as you'll see through our conversation, is ridiculously creative, and she fires with these brilliant ideas. So of course I see business all over it, and I say to her, "Create a business, write a book, get on it." And she looked at me in horror. Right, Joe?
That's correct.
Saying, "Yeah, I can't do that." And
Yeah, I can see myself as an author. Yes.
9 months later, oh well, look at that. Her book is coming out. So I'm just so excited. Now, first question, other than me, what inspired you really to write this book?
What inspired me is that I was seeing through years of experience in the schools and in my own home how when children were presented with a creativity experience, how different their learning became. How they opened up, how they thought about ideas, and especially if it's in a safe place of a classroom, of a teacher that allows that to happen. And so when you see that transformation, you get excited and you want to put more of that into their world. And so what was happening was I was starting to see children kind of passively learning, not really connecting to their academics, being removed in a way, always focused on the next video game, scrolling, being absorbed in hours and hours of on their devices and things like that. And I thought to myself, they have to wake up, give them back their crayons, metaphorically. But it was just an eye opener. And so when I was presented with the idea of maybe putting this down into writing, the stories did come out. They were there. And so I'm happy to share it with the world.
And it's interesting because really you had to be ready personally And isn't that how it goes, right? Now, most people are thinking, first of all, she is a teacher, obviously, so she's her writing level of skill is high. So I don't want people listening, Joe, to think that, oh, I could write a book in 9 months. Maybe you can. But when you sat down with the pen to paper and you showed me your notebook, it was pen to paper and typing, and you had notes everywhere. The stories you said,
Messy.
yeah,
Messy,
but
yeah.
that's okay. Creativity is messy,
Good
right?
chapter in
That's
my book, by the way.
yes.
Learning is messy.
Learning is messy, and
Yeah.
as you started to, because you were ready, the information flowed from you that you had stored in the brain. So that's kind of an important piece of the puzzle as well.
Yes, of course, of course. I think sometimes when we go through painful situations in our life, that we are presented with time to reflect, time to think about what could have been different or what could be changed. And sometimes when we're still and we're with ourselves, there's a creative spirit, I believe, that comes out, and we have to listen for it. We have to be open enough to listen to it, and dive in and reach out. And so I think that just like creativity, we have to remove ourselves of judgment and dive into something if we're interested or thinking about, wow, that sounds interesting. I was always curious about that when I was a young kid. How about me trying it now? And I don't think we're ever too old to try that. So
I agree. And it's interesting because to be still and self-reflect, Joe, that's not an easy thing for most people.
yeah.
If you will, just because I of course know your personal story as well, can you tell or do you feel comfortable sharing with everyone your story and how you were forced to kind of self-reflect and be still to find that next step for yourself? Just briefly tell us if that's okay with you.
No, that's fine. I think that it was like the perfect storm, right? So, your children get older; they're going off to college. You might be in a marriage where things aren't going well, and it's just not what you grew into. And so, when your marriage falls apart after so many years, and you're forced to kind of rethink your life in a way. You start to tap into, hey, how was I? How did I used to be? Or what was it when I was a child or a young person that made me want to love life, that want me to get back into finding that creative spirit or finding that love of life, that joy, why. So I think that kind of propelled me into diving into different things that I might enjoy. And that's how it started.
Yeah, and it's not an easy journey, right? You and
No,
I, we're our kids are graduating. I still have a college child, but junior, but your boys have
my
graduated.
books are done, yes.
Yeah, and divorce and next chapter in your
Quiet.
life,
It's
and
quiet. It's
what?
kind of quiet. It's like, wow, it's quiet. You find yourself that, wow, what's your role? Are you're not really a mom anymore? They're out on their own, and you have a job, and I have a career, and I love my job and my career as an administrator. And but really, what do you do after that? Who have to get to know yourself again.
Yeah, who
And
am
so
I?
I was able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, who am I? I mean, that's one of the biggest questions I think that we ask ourselves at every different stage of life. So
Right.
it's been a
And what's our
difficult journey.
purpose?
And
Really,
what's
I
our
think
purpose?
it's yeah. What's the why, right?
What's the why? What's the why?
The why.
Absolutely. So now, how did you come up with that awesome title?
Oh, love crayons.
Me
When you mentioned
too.
that 64 box of crayons,
Right?
and as a kid, do you ever think about like who chose where they should go? Like who chose where the blue should go, and the pink, and the orange, and all of the different beautiful, brilliant colors. And I often thought, creativity does that. You start thinking about things in a different way. But it was kind of metaphorically, like just in frustration, give me back my crayons, give me back the creative life that I used to have. And that I don't regret anything, growing up my children. I loved being there for all of their games and all of the things they were doing in terms of music and art and sports and academics and college visits and all of that. I go back tomorrow, but it's funny how you want to be a kid like again because you have the time. So.
And when you think of childhood, it was cute because I mean, I do love the name of the book, right? Give me back my crayons. So I thought as I was writing my introduction, I have to do something with crayons because we all remember the big box of Crayola
Right.
and the smell, just exactly what I said in my intro, and then that ability to take that crayon, whether you colored outside the lines or in,
Right.
nobody,
Didn't
you
matter.
didn't care. Yes, it was just. And the other thing I was thinking about, Joe, as I was kind of reflecting to write the introduction. Each of the names of the colors of the crayons were kind of magical, right? It was magenta. It
Right.
wasn't just pink, right? We had sky blue, not blue. We had teal, not green. So all of the names of the crayons were kind of magical. And I think as we age, we lose that, like, ooh, magenta. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Isn't that exciting?
Yes.
What color is that going to make? Hey, wow, I went over this color with that color and it made a new color. And so our blending of our colors and things that just pop up out of the paper. But I remember there's a story in the book where my middle school teacher tells us to break the crayons, Connie, break the crayons, take the paper off. Why would we do that? We're not supposed to break and damage, property. And so, how wonderful was that to draw the different and to press that crayon against that paper and to make rock formations and different things that come out of it. So you're once again you have to think beyond what you're given sometimes because there could be new life into everything.
And it's interesting because life, like you just said, right? We were taught rules. You don't break, something at school. You pay attention. You sit quietly. You observe. You speak when you're spoken to. You raise your hand. All of these rules that were put in place. And I think little by little, that takes that creativity from that natural expression that we want to do. Talk to me about what was the emotional impact for you in writing this book as you started to come up with the stories and the chapter. What did that feel like?
So
Yeah.
first I outline the chapters. I think when I think of creativity, in order to be creative, you have to celebrate yourself first. You have to say to yourself, we're all creative, right? Who am I not to be? So you have to celebrate yourself, and I think, and then reflect on it's okay to be a little messy. It's okay at first not to get it. We're so driven by Pinterest. I mean, we go online, we look at everything. Wow, it has to be perfect. So when adults and even children now are coming to the table and trying things out for the first time, it's not going to be perfect. But it's the process. It's the way that you approach it. It's the calmness that you feel. Being judgment free allows you to say, listen, I'm just here to step away from my life, my work, my job. I'm running around with the kids, and even the children need to stop and be bored a little bit, just to get those creativity juices going, and kind of think and imagine. And that world has to open up, but everything is so rushed and fast paced that we're losing sight and we're forgetting to look up. And that's a chapter as well in my book, to stop and look up at the beauty that's around us.
So all of these things you just described, was that part of your emotional journey
Yes.
as well to rediscover?
Every one of those things that I just talked about is a chapter in my book. And so learning is messy, and, celebrate your unique self, take time and create those precious moments, and put the phone away. There's a chapter on put the phone away. I think we're distracted. Tom Kirsting, has been a major part of influence in my life. And so I think when we think about how distracted we are as a society, that there's hours being spent, kids, going through their devices and scrolling and hours of scrolling, liking and hitting like, or he didn't hit like, or she didn't hit like. And what does that do to our self-esteem? And so to step away from that a little bit is a healthy thing. The Academy of Pediatrics tells us that under the age of 10, 1 hour a week, why it's not even happening per day.
Per
You know what I'm
day.
saying? It's happening more hours per day. That's the scary thing. And studies have been done where parents and children are maybe talking on an average of 3 quality minutes a day. So combine that together. What is our future going to look like for our children? Are they going to adapt? Are they going to take in the information that they need and be independent thinkers? I've watched kids passively go through day after day in the classroom and in their lives, disconnected, not really feeling like they are kind of independent thinkers, kind of like, hey, just can someone tell me how to think? Can someone tell me what to do? And okay, I'll do it. And so that's
And
the scary.
when you started writing right after my nephew's graduation, you came over in the summer and you
Yes.
were just showing me what you had created at that point, just to kind of bounce ideas. And you shared a story, and please don't use names for anybody listening that knows you, of course, as a teacher and an administrator in the school. But you spoke about a little boy that was ADHD or something he was diagnosed with, and how they felt he was not capable of learning. And I think this was many years ago, and how
Yes,
you
it was.
requested him right into your class. And can you briefly share that story? Because it was beautiful, brilliant,
No.
and really talks to creativity and the importance of it in everybody's life.
So what if you were a teacher and the past year's teacher goes up to you and says, "Oh, you have so and so? Oh no. You better brace yourself because you're going to be in for some kind of year." I never asked the previous year's teacher about their students. I don't want to know.
Correct. For our own judgment.
I want to, yeah, they're in a new class, a new start. And so he was a brilliant student, but he was not happy when it came to writing. He didn't want to write. He refused, because if we were writing narrative writing, he didn't want to write. If we were writing expository writing, he didn't want to write. Informational writing, anything. But he loved Harry Potter, Connie. There wasn't a day that went by that a book wasn't in his hands, a drawing wasn't made. He lived and breathed Harry Potter. And I said to him, you know what? You're going to be the information expert on Harry Potter. So when everybody's reading an informational text and they're writing about their sea turtles and the Titanic and all of that, you can write about Harry Potter and inform all of us about the world of Harry Potter. His eyes lit up. Connie, we had a whole new child in the classroom, and it was so exciting to watch that unfolds and blossom, and each day went by and more paragraphs and revising and editing, something that kids don't like to do. The brainstorming is fun. That's what I love. That's my favorite part, right? But no, it didn't matter. So came the time when we had to publish, and so how teachers give out the same stationery and all of the book reports have to look the same on the bulletin board. And that wasn't my classroom. My classroom was, hey, you're writing about the Titanic? Kids were forming the ship and the portholes opened up and each paragraph was inside the porthole. And, we had scrolls and mobiles with little paragraphs hanging on the hanger and the wire and the index cards. It was, why not? It's their imagination. It's their way of taking who they are inside and presenting their work. That shows you their understanding. I'm going to stop them and say, no, you must use this loose leaf paper and you must use this stationery because that's what we're all going to do. All can look the same. That's not, what message is that sending to the child? To suppress their creativity. It's not saying, to open up. And
it allows them to tell the story from their vantage point.
I believe in them, and I believe that they have this light that's inside. All of us have a light inside. It has to get out. So came the time we were publishing.
Yes.
He was frustrated because he didn't know how he was going to present all this information. And so he just kept going back to the face of Harry Potter. I said, no, Sarah, I have to get his face, his eyeglasses, his round eyeglass. He was obsessed. And so I said, how about we get a big poster? We want a poster paper, but I don't know how to draw that life size. I can only draw it on the small paper. How about we project, brainstorming, giving him ideas. Finally, he says, yes, I want to make a poster of him. Can you project it for me? So up goes onto the, interactive whiteboard. He's tracing it all out. He doesn't want the scroll. He doesn't want pieces of index cards. He's frustrated. He's in the place of messiness, right? In my writing center, I had every different color papers, stationery, color markers, all this fun stuff. But what he didn't realize was that he was getting to the bottom of his creativity. And so on it was a tape, like from a register tape. And so here it is, the tape, and the light bulb goes off. Connie, it was the best. He's like, don't tell anybody. And he rewrites his story on tape, on register tape. And I said to him, where is it going to go? And he looks at me like, with those eyes, through the scar. It's going to go through the scar, Miss Nook. And the kids, he didn't tell anybody, came the day of author celebration. He's sitting in the author chair and everybody's so excited. He's pulling out the tape through Harry Potter's scar. The kids like, the hush went over the classroom.
Magic.
How could that be? Oh my, what that did for him, he held his head high. He approached learning in a different way from that point on to the rest of the school year.
And that's such it's tribute,
tried.
but I know, but that's a tribute to you as a teacher. And I know I have a lot of teachers that listen to the show, but not only, corporate people listen to the show. And I really hope they take this. Creativity can be brought into any venue, at home, at your job, with your spouse, with your kids, right? There's no limitation. And that was just one of my favorite stories that was one of the favorite stories you had shared with me that moved me when you told me that, and that proudness, that pride that he felt because he created something that he was interested in, and the other kids saw the magic that he saw. And that's the power of the creativity. And that's the power, I think, of that emotional connection to getting inside of ourselves and finding our voice. He found his voice. Isn't that a beautiful thing?
He did. And the other children are not saying, well, he has a better idea than I do. No, it was about we're respecting each other's ideas. We're celebrating each other's uniqueness, and that's the bottom of it. Hey, listen, if you're in a corporation, I'll hand out some Play-Doh. We'll get you going.
Yeah,
we'll squeeze some flesh.
Let's see
a little bit. Right?
Let's see what we can sculpt. I love it. I love it. What was your favorite part for you in the writing journey? Because that's part of that creativity process as well. You do, the brainstorming.
I love the brainstorming. I could have, drawings and ideas and bubbles and pictures. And, I love that part. My brain is like popcorn 24/7. So I need to bring it down a little bit. But it for me, that's the most exciting part. And I love brainstorming, generating those ideas.
Jo, do you think that a lot of people, because people behave in different ways, right? You're very outgoing, you're very animated, like you said, you're popcorn. I'm similar, right? I think fast, I fire fast, right? And then you have people listening who are very reserved and introverted, and recommendation, because you've had students like that, when they're trying to unravel or unleash their creativity and finding that joy and bliss that we're talking about, right, even as adults, instead of being organized, even if they think in an organized fashion, it's okay to just write and stream kind of your thought of consciousness and then go back and reorganize. Is that...
That's exactly right. So think about when you sit down to the writing process. Right. It's the practice, really. It's the practice that helps you become a better writer. It's not like you're going to generate the idea in your head and then you need to keep writing. And then if you have nothing to write about, I have nothing to write about. Why can't I think about anything to write about? Oh yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. It's a stream of consciousness and it's a heart dumping, as Jennifer, Tuma Young told me, just heart dump. And it is the absolute truth. Don't think about your writing. Don't think about spelling, grammar, anything. It's kind of just let it out. And if you have a silly thought, write it down. No one's judging you. And so it really is, it's the way to go. So.
And have you noticed lately, everywhere you go in stores and even online, I see it, they have the adult coloring books.
Yes.
And they found, research has shown that sitting and coloring is very therapeutic. It's a form of meditation now, and it's a way to quiet the mind so that we can find, again, that creativity, that joy, that inner peace that I think we're all searching for in our crazy society today. So do you see that a lot with your peers, like coloring and going back to that?
Yeah, I think so, but there are people that crayons don't speak to them. And so my advice would be, take a walk in nature. So many times I took my bike down to the shore and rode along the shoreline and walked on the boardwalk, and being in nature. I love trees. I love to be. I remember when I went to Muir Woods in California, it was my favorite time, and the redwoods were huge, and it's so peaceful, Connie, there. And so that's why a tree exists on the cover of my book. But nature, connecting to nature is so important to let that creativity out. And so I encourage that. So if you're not a crayon person, if you're not coloring pencils, that kind of thing, it's okay. Nature is the next way to go.
It's funny you say that, because my son John, when he graduated last year, finding himself, and all of a sudden he wasn't a student anymore. What do I do now? And yes, and he became very stressed out by that. So he went and spoke to someone, and she's like, "Oh, meditate." And he tried and she gave him ideas, and he was getting more frustrated with the meditation. So then she recommended, she said, "Go for a walk we have beautiful Homedale Park, right in our backyard. Go walking through the woods." And he came home, it was like a new child, 23-year-old man walking through my door. So I love that advice, because everybody isn't creative with the hand and drawing and that kind of thing. Sometimes the creativity comes to us with clarity when we are in nature. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. We're talking about creativity in general, and the book, you have many, many chapters making all different recommendations. 3 words to describe yourself, what would they be?
Ooh, definitely energetic. Can you tell?
No.
Definitely energetic. I'm such a caring soul. So I am a mush inside, and I care about a lot of things I put my energy into, and a lot of people that I care about. Yeah. And silly. Sometimes I'm silly.
You're always silly, which I love. Silly is good. It's we take ourselves too darn seriously, so silly, I think, is a really good thing. Tell me what success means to you, if you had to define it for you.
Success means to be happy with who you are, what you're doing, and enjoy the process. And when I told my kids about going to college and finding their university of happy, like do you see yourself happy here? Success has to come from within. So many times we put a dollar sign or materialistic things that connect ourselves to success, but success is really your own journey, and finding that happiness and joy in that journey, and coming to that point.
I agree 100% with that. For me, it's not a monetary thing, right? And the ironic thing is that I'm very much like you, high energy. I'm very passionate, and I want to help people. I really want to help people thrive. For me, it's sales, right? So there's a financial component to it. But I find, Joe, the more I give through my life, I am treated with such generosity and love, and it overwhelms me at times, and it humbles me every day. And I'm redoing my website, writing a book, all that we were talking before. And so I asked some of my colleagues, that I work with, my clients, can they write testimonials? And Joe, I know they care about me, right? I know they love me and all of those things, and they respect me. They sent me these testimonials. I'm reading them going, holy crap, like this is the kindest thing. And I, write back with such gratitude. And they were like, I think this of you. I'm like, I know, but when you see it in writing, just like, wow, right?
just like when you come to the table to create, you don't think about, well, if I do this, all these people are going to like it. That's not
No.
why you do the things you do, right? So that's why you had all those beautiful testimonials, because you just do it because of you. That's coming from your heart. You're not
Absolutely.
thinking there's an ulterior motive, and that's why I'm going to do something for
I'm
someone
not
else.
that smart.
For you to even want, I mean, it's true. Anybody that wants to be in the education world, we're not in it for the money. I left Goldman Sachs a long time ago because that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to make meaning, not money. And so, every day I just help those kids. Some of them are sad and some of them are happy, and what's going on, and how could we help you to be your best? To what's
Absolutely.
inside of you. Let's let it come out. Let's get it out. What were you here and meant to do on this earth?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, Joe, I'm laughing because all the parents listening, because of course we're peers to us, right? They're like, where was she teaching? Why wasn't she teaching my kid? I'm sure this is running. Can we adopt her, right, to come into our house? What with the
Okay,
book? Okay,
I'll
just,
bear it.
well, we're going to give your information in a minute. We're almost out of time. One more question, then we really are out of time. What do you want the readers to get after reading this book? And it's for all ages, by the way, folks. So.
I want them to put down the phone, take their distractions away from themselves and their children. And I want them to be in moments of joyful, blissful, creative moments, whether that's outside in nature, in front of a sewing machine, with crayons, without crayon, cook up a meal together. In the kitchen. And if you have a little bake oven, let them be on the side of you while you're doing that and have that conversation. Build a tent. I have chapters upon chapters of the book that speaks. So it's kind of like a prescriptive. So each chapter goes through stories, and at the end of the chapter, there's creative cues that every family could kind of get, like, hey, well, okay, she's telling me all these things. Now what do I do? Creative cues will tell you that. There's a section on that. And so at the end also of each chapter, there's a creativity break where you get to do something creative, interact with the book or on a separate, piece of paper or somewhere else. There is points in the book you can write inside the book and draw inside the book. So I'm excited about it. I think it's going to transform their lives. I totally believe it. I've seen it happen with children and adults, and I'm so excited to bring this book to the world. Yeah.
It's a lifetime endeavor that is now coming out of you, and I'm so proud of you personally, but it's needed. It's so darn needed today. And everybody listening, we're rushing and running, and we don't stop. And I said to my husband, before we recorded the show, running up the stairs and down like a crazy person today.
Right.
And he said to me, what did he say? He goes, you need to get more organized. I am the epitome of organization. He was joking, because you know me, Joe.
Yeah,
I'm the epitome. And he was teasing
Right.
me. And he's like,
Of
and
course.
you really need to slow down. And I'm like, have you met me? But you know what? He was making me laugh. And as I walked away, I laughed. I took the breath, and I thought, stop. Like, why are you overwhelmed? You'll get it all done. You are organized. You have the energy to do it. But that moment of laughter, he forces me to pause and brings me back down. So,
Right.
We could find these moments of bliss in seconds like that just before we recorded the show. So, I love the book. I love the chapters in the book. Everybody has to buy it to see all the chapters. Joe told us some of them.
Thank you.
And I also love in the book that it's not only about drawing and crayon and sewing. You do talk about nature, and you do talk about many ways that we can find our inner bliss, and whatever that means for the reader, and in this case, the listeners. So guys, if you are beyond intrigued, which I hope you are, and I don't care what job you have or what you do for a living, whether you're in a corporate environment or a teacher, I think this is a must-read book for humans, because I think we need to reground ourselves as a society. And this book is a real fun, cool way to just breathe and find that inner bliss. I love that word, bliss. So find Joanne. Her website is Joanne Creates, and Joanne is Joann, and then Creates is plural, Creates And on the website, you can pre-order the book, which is coming out this quarter, first quarter of 2020. You can pre-order. And the second thing, tell them about the in Asbury Park if you're in Jersey.
So, what I thought I would do is, after they read the book and they still want to have creativity in their lives, is to offer pop-up kind of creativity connections. And so I picked Asbury Park at Langusta Lounge, March 7th and April 16th. That's also on my website. I did form a company called Meraki on the Move. Meraki is a Greek word meaning creativity, love, and soul, putting our heart and soul into things that we love and want to learn about. And so if you want a creative experience, look on the website. Meraki on the Move does have its own website, MerakiOnTheMove.com, MERAKI onthemove.com. And so I'm so thrilled. I have one more thing. I have a children's book series coming out that will accompany Give Me Back My Crayons. It's a Catherine Grace story. And Catherine Grace is not graceful, and she gets into trouble, and her creativity gets her out of it. So those books will be coming by September, and so it's exciting to watch that unfold as well. So
yeah. So
all
here's
all good.
Yeah, Joanne, you don't sleep. You're like me. We just don't sleep. We just keep going. What sleep? When we're dead, we'll sleep.
Why not? So they're reading the adult book. Why can't the kids read their own book and come up with the 10 keys to unlocking the creativity within, right? Why not?
I love it. So
love those,
if you guys are excited and want to be friends with Joanne, I'm lucky enough to have her in my life. I highly recommend go to the website. And if you're in Jersey, man, check it out. She'll have different pop-ups throughout the year. So go to joannecreates.com and you can find the book. You can find the Meraki, whatever the name of the business is. And as you were just saying that, in my head, this is what I thought, Joe. Of course she found a Greek word that illustrates everything she is because you're so creative. Of course you found the one word. You're a lunatic and I love it. So yeah, thank you for being on. We really are out of time, but thank you so much. And yes, and this was fun. This was a real fun show. And I hope my listeners are energized after listening. You guys, don't forget, if you are still interested in getting your free communication style assessment, go to my other business, wisdomdecoded.com. Right on the landing page, take your CSA, Communication Style Assessment, get your free report, start to see your blind spots, your superpowers, but also your blind spots as you communicate, so that when we get out there, we are connecting and communicating exactly the way we want to. So check that out. Again, a free resource that my partner and I offer. Thank you all for listening. Joe, thank you for being just such an amazing guest. It was fun, and guys, check out Joanne Creates, buy the book, and just start to find your creativity, your inner voice, your bliss, your joy, and whatever that is for you. Maybe this is the stepping stone. 2020, new year, new decade. Maybe this is what you're looking for to inspire you to change and create the change you're looking for. So I hope you will continue to join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together that change, no matter what change you're going through, it's easier than you think. And there are resources out there to help, like my friend Joanne and joannecreates.com and her book. Easy peasy, easy ways to do it. You just have to be able or willing to use some of the resources. Listen to these shows, all of these things. There's so many resources out there for you. Change is possible and easier than you think. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.net. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I truly wish you an inspired, creative, and blissful week. Thanks, everybody.